This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. I want to talk about sociocultural default mindset, facts, agency, and group thinking. The default mindset is has several layers, and it has several not only layers but identities. Okay, there is a. We could say that any society has a base default mind, and but that base default mindset or it's not is not does not mean that we all have build the same identity, sociocultural identity, at the personal level, because of the obvious reasons. As individuals, we have different life experiences and we have different personality traits, and therefore we transform that experience. The experience itself transforms us and makes us feel in different ways in the presence of the same experience of life experience, and therefore we build a different identity from each other, but the same traits, the same features of a default mindset about how the society works, about the economy, about the acceptable behavior, and many other aspects of our of how we perceive the world and ourselves and build our relations and so on and so forth. So do facts matter? Yes and no. Why? Because logic is can be more important for us to build our identity, to build our sociocultural identity, than facts. Why? Because we have agency, but agency is only we don't understand that we most of the time we don't use our agency critically, because all our indoctrination and instrumentalization process does not um, does not does not is not based on the building of critical analysis, of the environment. When I mean the environment, I mean the sociocultural environment, the narratives, but also how we process information, how we process opinions, how our cognitive neuronal networks process all this information. And our logic becomes more important than reasoning, which means that we take logic as the result of reasoning. But reasoning only becomes important or becomes relevant in how we acquire knowledge if we would have if we would have a pedagogy, a default pedagogic system that would be more interested in educating people to become conscious, critical analysts, okay, than to believe in the supremacy or superiority of the reasoning, when in fact most of the time our reasoning processes are following logic, not reason, which means that facts in many cases are not important for us. And by the way, it's not only that the problem is that facts can be used, distorted, to build a totally fabricated narrative about reality, to manufacture consent, to manipulate our perception. And nevertheless, we take it as facts because they are logic. So our agency is worthless if we do not train ourselves, and we have to train ourselves because nobody does. Most of schooling, and by the way, I always emphasize this because people have such we are domesticated beings, and as domesticated beings, we cannot escape indoctrination and instrumentalization. It's impossible. What we can do, what kind of indoctrination and what kind of instrumentalization are we subjected? So we have the freedom and the agency to build a culture, to be the culture of liberation, to build an indoctrination system and instrumentalization system that truly helps us to become critical thinkers and analysts, and that we understand the difference between reason and logic, that we don't need to be experts. We need to build a common sense that is with foundations where truth, justice, and trust really matter. That we understand the relevance of these pillars to build an intellectual edifice, an intellectual building, an intellectual architecture, whatever you want to, that is where truth is important, where facts, where we understand the difference between manipulation and explanation, between justification and explanation. And we always need, this is not a perfect science, okay? We will be always wrong, incorrect, flawed, and this and that, and so on and so forth. That's why we need each other to correct each other, because we are in different stages of understanding the problems of life and society and politics and everything else. So it doesn't matter who you are. You don't need to be lectured. What you need to be, it's open. What you need to be, it's that what is your what is the principles, the values that really matter. How could we build a society and a civilization that really, where life and nature and the well-being, the collective well-being is really important? Why should we allow allow a system or support a system which marching orders come from basically psychopaths, megalomaniacal and narcissistic people that do not care at all about our well-being? And why? Because we follow logic. We follow once I'm able, or once a group, that's also the relevance of group thinking. Once we once a group of people, an institution, an organization, a political party, a church, like that famous quote by Voltaire, I guess, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. You see the relevance of it. Which means once I can use logic, I can use a few axioms on premises and build a narrative. And I put a couple of ideas there, and I make an architect. I build it in a way that is convincing, that is logic. It seems good, correct, true. And once I convince you that I'm an authority, or I am, or God gave me the lead, the role of spreading this truth, or whatever it is, any form of authority, of hero, or savior, or leader, that's going to tell you, and then, okay, this is like that, and blah blah blah. If I can make you believe it, because it seems so logical, so evident, I might be able to use you, to instrumentalize you. I indoctrinate you and I instrumentalize you. Therefore, I might be able, or this group of people, this institution, this organization might be able to use you. It depends on how deep the fundamentalism, okay, and might be able to use you as an useful idiot and cannon fodder and expendable peon. And you still believe that you are defending the truth. And you might even, it might be based on facts, but they are distorted. They have been distorted along the way. And as I said many times, a little distortion here, a little omission there, a little fabrication, and there you have it. You have a functional lie that becomes part of you, a living being that becomes part of the living being through the process of long-term memories and implicit memories that we in as a narrative, as an identity narrative that is dominant, that is instrumentalizing us. And we need to understand this. I mean, it doesn't matter, because I mean, I'm not trying to say that I am accurate. But this these statements of mine, these thoughts, um, these insights come from observation, my own the observation of my own thought processes, my own how I change over time in what in the dominant narratives that were controlling my mind, and I observe it in others, and how I observe that intellectual understanding is not enough because it doesn't really change you. You have to change through a process, a conscious process, transformative process that you are aware, but in a sustained way, not an episodic or fortuitous way. Because we believe that we use our agency when we do not, or we use it, but we use it over others' commands, over following authorities, critically many times, because we trust them. And that is why we have our individuality, we have a conscious mind, and nevertheless, we most of the time don't understand the default mindset that exists in our environment, in our sociocultural environment, and dictates the features. It dictates the functioning of our perception. The same way we learn a language or acquire tastes, our food taste, and all the things that come with our sociocultural shaping. So this and since our the social aspect of our condition makes us also vulnerable to tribalization. There is nothing wrong with tribalization. There is nothing wrong in being part of a group. Okay, that's nothing wrong with having differences with others. We will always have them because we have differences with ourselves. We are the same person, and nevertheless, we are different persons across our life, the life across our existence. So the point is that is not wrong. What is wrong is the basic values. What we need to really go to the basic values and principles, to a culture that we need to have a culture that makes us as immune as possible to becoming manipulated by people and groups and institutions and organizations and governments or whatever that want to use us, want us to have distorted distorted understanding of our very culture, of our very of our the very nature of our sociocultural condition. And that's what we have around us. That's why it's so important to build a holistic understanding, a comprehensive understanding, not a compartmentalized understanding. If we really care about freedom, and having lives with meaning, we need to to understand, but to go through this process, transformative process of understanding, and in a conscious and holistic way. Otherwise, our vulnerability to be divided and fractured and polarized will always prevail, because we refuse to have to build an understanding of the human nature, the sociocultural, to build a true understanding, a holistic understanding of the sociocultural nature of the human condition. Once we buy into these ideas of the pursuit of self-interest, and we do not understand, and we think, and we think that, for example, things as simple as owning private property, inheritance rights, proprietary rights, private banking, buy this, there's those, and once you take those things as solid as rock, as being part of the human societies, as always ever existed and will never change, and blah 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 blah, you are buying into a mindset, a default mindset, that doesn't allow you to understand reality, but through that mindset, through that intellectual framing, language, that intellectual and language framing. But we don't need to be aware of it. We do it automatically, because it's in our subconscious mind as pillars of our identity, of our psychosociocultural identity. That in spite or despite of our differences, because we refuse to think critically about the basics of how we organize our societies and economies and our politics. And we talk about freedom and democracy and other values in abstract terms. And we don't understand that everything is relational. That's another thing, that if you do not get it, if you not use it, if you do not become using it in a conscious manner, trained conscious manner, that let everything about us as to be thought as processes, as systems, as relations. Things have to be related to something else. There is no truth, there is no trust, there is no justice, unless when it is in relation with. Things are not static. Okay? We are living organisms. Society is also a living organism. So that's why it matters a lot who controls the institutions, who controls the narratives. Who tells us stories about our freedom, giving us some freedoms, which is that you can buy if you have money, of course, or if you can go into debt, that you can buy, you are free to choose between Coke and Pepsi, or this and that, or you can move if you have a car, or if you have money, you can fly, you can go here and go there, and blah blah blah. You can eat whatever always if you have money. Those who don't have the money don't have those freedoms, or at least have very limited freedoms. They tell us, it doesn't matter what kind of BS job, or what have you what do you have to give up of your own self, of the building of of a meaningful life from inside out, not against anybody, not against the existing institutions, but as part of a process for the collective well-being. Okay? And we do not do it, as we build everything against. Even when we search for really true freedom, which is the freedom that you are not smashed, that you are not that you do not end up with a boot stepping on your face permanently. And this is a society and a civilization, the political system and economic system, where exactly it's contrary to the very nature of the socio-cultural condition of the human nature, that we are supposedly building things against each other, competing with each other. We follow the meanest of us all, the ones that have the features, that lack the features, lack the basic features of the sociocultural human condition, such as empathy and compassion, and the impulse to cooperate and reciprocate. So this is very. I mean, it's again. This seems. I mean, it is hard. It requires us to challenge our certainties, our intellectual certainties, because we always have to these ideas that are these pillars, this historic, these philosophical, these great thinkers, these great scientists, these great writers, these great this, this great that. That doesn't exist a single human being that is not flawed, that has ever existed. And anything that is built by man is flawed, is incomplete, has always incorrections. And that's not a problem at all. The problem is when these incorrections are intentional, to be part of a system to manipulate the rest of us, to keep us under control, while believing that we are free and have miserable, meaningless lives, and try to accomplish something through mindless consumerism. And building relations based in commodity. All human relations are commodified. And being addicted and making us addicted to convenience, which many people don't understand how troubling this is, how weak does it makes us. And we follow memes, okay? We are literally, most of us, exactly because we don't use the agency in the right way, we are colonized by memes, by cultural memes and ideological memes. Of course, we buy into those that makes us feel better, or make us that we believe are more close to be the right ones, and this and that. That's where our agency ends, because we do not are not trained, because we are not, the way we are indoctrinated and instrumentalized is not to make us build this slow process that requires training, just like any other skill. Natural skill requires training, which is this conscious transformative process based on the building of strong pillars of critical analysis, comprehensive analysis of the reality of ourselves, of how we relate to each other and why, and this and that. These questions need to be asked, not in not we don't need to be possessive about it, but we need to be constant about it. Otherwise, we become victims of instrumentalization that is designed to transform us into useful idiots and cannon fodder and expendable peons. It doesn't matter how free you think you are. You can see what I'm saying. It's what we have. You can see the political the political reality of the Western world, and not only, but I'm talking about the Western world. Where is the imagination? Where is the creative imagination and the capability of critical thinking of people that are supposed to be cultivated, to be sophisticated, to have a cosmopolitan education and living style and lifestyle? Where is it? None whatsoever. Are we stupid or what? No. I mean, we all know that there are big differences in big differences and types of intelligence. Okay, there are differences in grade, but also in types of intelligence. So therefore, there are some people that can grasp things faster or deeper or wider or whatever than others. That is true. But can't we all grasp the reality if we use a framework, if we use an intellectual framework, a critical analytic framework that allows us to spot lies, to spot fallacies, to spot demagoguery? Yes, we can. But we are not for a moment, across most of our educational process. That's not what education is about. It's about indoctrinating and instrumentalizing us to serve a system that preys on us, preys on nature, destroys everything, destroys our very humanity, that humanizes us. And we don't even understand how deep this runs inside our very minds, our subconscious minds. And you need to understand it. And we need to understand it not only intellectually, we need to understand it by building a conscious transformative process that really we are in charge. Okay? And we become in charge of that transformation that is occurring in ourselves. Because most of the time we are not in charge. We pick and choose, but do we pick and choose And the transformative process conscious means that things you don't allow them to colonize you. It's not just about filtering. It's about using judgment, discernment in a holistic way. And this requires training. That's my point. People believe that they can spot things like that. No, if we do not train ourselves, a constant training, understanding what's at stake, we are defrauded day after day of our lives. And most of the time by those we believe we can trust. First, start not to see people, not to perceive people. It doesn't matter how smart or genius they are. As leaders, as saviors, as heroes, as authorities, respect and admire people. Never. They are not idols. Don't put them in any pedestal. They are human beings just like you, just like me. Stop dividing people in categories. None of us, all of us are human beings with dignity. Even those we might need to put some people to imprison people or whatever we need to do in order to make society safe. Okay, I'm not stupid to say that, but we should not buy into the demonization of the human condition, to buy into those ideas that we are supposed to be inherently evil, without understanding how the environment, how the sociocultural environment can the toll, the change, the modification, the shaping, the distortion, that we can be so distorted by the environments that we need to adapt to in order to survive. And these manufactured environments have been designed by those that just want to use us as cattle. And when we can become as vicious as them, because of the default mindset that exists in the air we breathe, in all the images, in what we have in our environment, and just becomes part of us. We don't need to do anything. It just becomes part of us. It just colonizes us. And we still believe that everything we think is of our own choice, and this and that, and so on and so forth. And you can ask, okay, but you seem to kind of no, this is a long, painful process, and I don't not own the truth about anything. But I am a human being, and I try to be a human being with the dignity and and to try honestly to understand the very nature, the very sociocultural nature of what means to be a human being. It's a fight. That's a problem that we need to fight against. As I said, we have to be in a war against everything, almost everything. And unnecessarily, and the immense unnecessary suffering that we cause to everything, to nature, to life. And what do we want? I mean, ask yourself, what do you want from life? And why do you want it? Ask yourself. Okay, thank you for listening. I'll be back soon.